All right, so you wanted to deep dive into Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Yeah.
So let's do it. This one is all about building better habits, and it's not just about like to-do lists and stuff. It gets into the psychology behind habits, you know, how they shape us. And I love how Clear emphasizes those tiny changes that lead to those big results, right?
Yeah, and what I find really cool about this book is that it goes like deep into the mechanics of how we form habits. It's not just about willpower. It's like he's giving us this blueprint for how to re-engineer our behaviors.
Oh, totally. That's a great way to put it. Like, remember that analogy of the ice cube?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's melting slowly, and then suddenly, boom, there's a puddle.
Yep.
And it feels like it happened overnight.
Exactly.
But it's all that consistent effort that got us there.
It is. And we often get so focused on just the outcome, but the real magic, it's happening in the process, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Clear calls this the plateau of latent potential.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, it's that period where you're working really hard, but not really seeing the results right away.
Yeah.
And it can be so frustrating, but
for sure.
it's essential, like part of the journey.
I think we've all been there.
Oh, absolutely. Think about like your own experiences. Have you ever tried building a habit and you just hit that plateau where you're like, ugh, I want to give up?
Oh, all the time. But knowing about this plateau of latent potential, it's almost like a superpower now.
Right.
It helps me trust the process. Keep going, even when I don't see results immediately.
Yeah, it's about shifting your focus, moving away from like those quick fixes and more towards building sustainable systems.
Yeah.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Cleary argues that habits, they're not just about doing things.
Okay.
They're about becoming someone. It's like each habit is a building block for the person you want to be.
I love that. It makes it feel so much more significant. Like, it's not just checking things off a list, you know?
Right.
It's shaping my identity.
Yeah, yeah. Do you remember any specific examples from the book?
Oh, tons. But what was that one?
Well, he talks about people
Yeah.
who want to be like financially successful,
Right.
but they still have the habits of someone who spends a lot. So they make budgets, but their identity, it hasn't really shifted yet. So they're still operating with that mindset of immediate gratification, you know?
That makes sense.
Yeah, over those long-term goals.
That's such a good point. I'm going to have to think about, you know,
Yeah.
if I have any habits that are maybe like at odds with who I want to be.
Absolutely. It's like a question we should all be asking ourselves.
Totally. Makes you think. But, okay, let's say I realize there's a gap between my habits and my aspirations.
Yeah.
How do I bridge that? Like, how do I start living in alignment with that person I want to become?
Well, Clear has this great analogy. He says every action we take, it's like a vote for the person we want to become.
All right.
So every time you choose to, I don't know, exercise, it's a vote for being that healthy person. But every time you've like put off a project, it's a vote for being someone who avoids challenges.
Right, right.
And all those votes, they build up over time and they shape our self-image.
Okay, that's brilliant. I love that. So we're always casting these ballots for our future selves, even in those small actions.
Precisely.
But how do we make sure those votes, they count, you know?
Right.
How do we actually build those better habits?
Well, Clear breaks down this whole process into what he calls a 4-stage habit loop.
Okay.
Which is cue, craving, response, and reward.
Got it.
It's like this cycle that just keeps repeating.
Okay.
So imagine, I don't know, you're trying to develop a reading habit.
Okay. Yeah.
So the cue could be you see your book on your nightstand.
Right, right.
And then that triggers a craving, like for knowledge or relaxation.
Yeah.
And then you pick up the book, you start reading. That's the response.
Yeah.
And then the reward is that enjoyment.
Yeah.
That sense of accomplishment you get afterwards.
So it's all about understanding this loop, right?
Yes.
And like hacking it.
Exactly. You want to make the cues more obvious, the cravings more intense,
Yeah.
the response is easier, and the rewards like more satisfying.
I see. I see. But our brains, like, they're always making these predictions, right?
They are, yeah.
Based on our past experiences.
It's true.
Like, think about driving.
Yeah. You don't have to like consciously think about every single step, right?
Right, right.
It's become automatic.
Yeah, totally.
Because your brain has learned that sequence and it anticipates what's going to happen.
But sometimes those automatic responses, they aren't so helpful.
Oh, I know.
Like when I'm scrolling on my phone instead of working or reaching for the chips when I'm trying to eat healthy.
Right.
It's like my brain's on autopilot following these like bad paths.
Totally. And that's where Clear's suggestion of pointing and calling comes in.
Pointing and calling. Okay, now I'm intrigued. What's that all about?
Well, it might sound a bit silly.
Okay.
But it's basically like verbally acknowledging what you're doing.
Okay.
To bring more awareness to it.
Okay.
So, for example, like instead of just grabbing your phone without thinking,
right,
you could say to yourself, okay, I'm feeling anxious right now.
Yeah.
And I want to distract myself by, checking social media.
Interesting.
It might feel weird at first, but it helps to break that automatic response.
Right.
And it brings your choices into your conscious awareness.
Okay, so it's like shining a light on those subconscious habits.
Exactly.
Okay, I can see how that would be helpful, but wouldn't that get exhausting after a while?
It definitely can. And that's why it's important to just choose a few specific habits to focus on.
Gotcha.
You don't have to, narrate your entire day.
Right.
Just start with 1 or 2 areas where you really want to gain that control.
That makes sense. So we've talked about this habit loop, the power of prediction and breaking those automatic responses.
Right.
But how do we make the good habits stick?
Yeah, that's the key, right?
Like, what are some techniques for actually building those positive behaviors?
Well, Clear's has, this whole toolbox of techniques.
I bet.
One that I find really helpful is implementation intentions.
Oh, okay.
It's basically moving beyond those, vague goals and making specific plans for action.
Oh, okay.
So instead of saying, oh, I want to exercise more, you decide exactly when and where you're going to exercise.
Right.
He even talked about all these studies that show that kind of planning, it really increases your chance of actually doing it.
So it's like creating that clear roadmap for my habits.
Exactly. Instead of just hoping you'll find the time, you're making that pre-commitment to a specific plan.
But what if something unexpected comes up? Like life is unpredictable.
Oh, of course. Like being flexible is important.
Yeah.
But the idea is to shift away from vague intentions and move towards those concrete actions. It's like putting it in your calendar, scheduling a meeting with yourself.
Yeah.
You're making it a priority.
Right.
Not just like a wish.
Okay, so what's something you've been meaning to make a habit?
Ooh, that's a good question. I've been wanting to start meditating more regularly.
Oh, yeah.
But it just always ends up in the bottom of my to-do list,
Right.
But maybe if I actually schedule it in my calendar,
Yeah.
treat it like an important appointment, I don't know, maybe that'll help.
I think it will.
Yeah, I think it's about making the habit obvious and a priority.
Right.
Clear also talks about making habits attractive.
Okay.
The more appealing a behavior is, the more likely we are to do it again.
It's like that saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Exactly.
But if you make the water taste delicious, the horse will be begging for more.
Exactly. And Clear has some really cool suggestions for how to, make those habits more appealing.
Like what?
Well, one is environment design, like making those visual cues work for you.
Oh, yeah.
So, for instance, if you want to eat healthier, put a bowl of fruit, right on the counter.
Oh, yeah.
Where you see it every time you walk into the kitchen.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, and what about temptation bundling?
Oh, that's a good one.
I love that idea. You pair something you need to do with something you want to do.
Exactly.
Like listening to your favorite podcast while you're cleaning.
Oh, yeah.
Or taking a relaxing bath after you finish a tough work task.
Yes. It's about making those mundane tasks more enjoyable.
This is all making so much sense.
Good.
Okay, but what about breaking bad habits?
Oh, that's the other side of the coin.
Right.
It's a lot about, it's like the opposite of building good habits.
Okay.
You want to make them unattractive and difficult. So imagine you're trying to, resist a cookie, right?
Okay.
If it's sitting right there on the counter, oh, it's so tempting.
Right.
But if you hide it away in a cupboard,
Yeah.
it's much easier to make a healthier choice.
Oh, that's so true. It's all about that friction, right?
It is.
Increasing it for bad habits?
Yes.
Decreasing it for the good ones?
Exactly.
I remember Claire telling that story about the Vietnam War veterans.
Oh, yeah.
Who, spontaneously broke their heroin addiction.
Wow, yeah.
When they came home.
Well,
it really shows how much our environment shapes our behavior.
Yeah, context matters. Sometimes just changing your environment can have a huge impact on your habits.
That's pretty amazing. It makes me think about, what other ways can we manipulate our environment to make those good habits easier and the bad ones harder?
It's like setting ourselves up for success.
Right.
Yeah. Clear also talks about commitment devices.
Okay.
He tells this story about Victor Hugo.
Awesome.
Yeah. He locked away all his clothes so he couldn't leave the house.
Right.
And he would be forced to write.
Wow. Okay, that's extreme.
It is. But it's that idea of, like, removing the option to make the bad choice.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I do something similar, but not that extreme with my phone. When I need to focus, I put it in another room.
Oh, smart.
So I'm not, constantly checking it.
That's a good strategy.
This is also insightful. It feels like Clear has given us like this whole new set of tools for understanding and shaping our habits.
I think so, too.
But we've covered so much.
I know, we have.
Is there anything else we should, like, touch on before we move on?
I think it's important to remember that habits,
Yeah.
they're not just about these mechanics and techniques,
Yeah.
They're also about emotions and feelings.
Oh, that's a good point. We've talked about, the how of habits, but what about the why?
Exactly.
Like that feeling of satisfaction when you build good habits or you break bad ones.
That's such a crucial part. And that's what I think we're going to be talking about in the next part of our deep dive.
Perfect. Can't wait. See you in part 2.
See you then.
Right.
So, as we were talking about that feeling of satisfaction and habits,
Yeah.
it made me think about Clear's point about how our brains are wired. He talks about the difference between what he calls immediate return environments and delayed return environments.
Right. It's like our brains are still stuck in like the Stone Age.
Yes.
Back when you saw a threat, you ran, you found food, you ate it.
Right.
Cause and effect were super immediate.
Exactly.
But these days, it's all about delayed gratification.
It is.
Like we work hard at a job for years to build a career.
Right.
We invest money for retirement. We exercise to be healthier, over time.
Yeah.
The rewards are huge, but they're not instant.
No.
And it's hard to stay motivated sometimes.
It is. It's like our brains are screaming for that instant cookie, even though we know it's better to wait.
Exactly. So how do we deal with that?
Yeah.
That primal urge for instant gratification with this reality of delayed rewards.
Well, Clear suggests finding those ways to make the process itself more satisfying.
Okay.
It's about, finding joy in the journey.
I like that.
Not just the destination.
Yeah, but how do we actually do that?
Well, he talks about the power of reinforcement.
Okay.
Like even small rewards, they can be super effective.
Yeah.
So, for example, you could listen to your favorite song after you work out. Or have a cup of tea after finishing a chapter in a book. Just little things to associate the habit with something pleasurable.
So we're like training our brains to want that good stuff.
Yes.
You're basically rewiring that reward system,
That's
right?
exact.
To make those healthy habits feel more rewarding than the unhealthy ones.
Yeah.
I actually do something like that with my writing.
Oh.
After I finish a really hard chapter, I have a piece of dark chocolate. It's like this little ritual.
I love it. It's about finding those little things that bring you joy and incorporating them into your routine.
Totally.
Clear also talks about making doing nothing enjoyable.
Doing nothing? What do you mean?
It's like you want to remove the temptation of those bad habits by making the alternative more appealing.
Got it.
So let's say you're trying to like cut back on watching TV.
Yeah.
Instead of just sitting there feeling bored, you could create like a cozy reading nook.
Oh, yeah.
With a comfy chair.
Yeah.
Good lighting.
Yeah.
So you're essentially making that good habit more inviting than the bad habit.
It's like that saying, if you want someone to do something, make it easy.
Exactly.
If you want someone to not do something, make it difficult.
That's it. And remember, like, you don't have to be perfect.
Oh, thank goodness.
Clear even says missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the start of a new habit.
That's so true.
So if you slip up, don't beat yourself up about it.
Right.
Just get back on track.
I think that's so important.
It is.
It takes the pressure off.
Totally.
It makes it feel, more sustainable.
It does.
Like you're allowed to be human.
Yes.
We all have those days where we mess up.
Exactly.
The key is to not let it become like this downward spiral.
Absolutely.
And speaking of sustainable, Clear has those interesting thoughts about finding your Goldilocks zone with habits.
The not too hot, not too cold.
Exactly.
Just right.
Yes.
He says those really motivating behaviors are the ones that are challenging enough to keep you engaged, but not so difficult that you just get discouraged.
Yeah.
So it's about finding that sweet spot,
Like I think about that with exercise.
Oh, yeah.
If I do too much too soon, I just burn out.
Right.
I give up.
You got to listen to your body, understand your limits, and push yourself gradually.
Yeah.
But not too much at once.
Exactly. small, achievable goals.
Yes.
So I'm more likely to stick with it and slowly increase the intensity over time.
That's a great example. Clear also emphasizes that it's really important to understand your own personality,
Okay.
and how that might influence your habits.
Right.
Some people thrive on, like, novelty and variety,
Mm-hmm.
while others really prefer routine and predictability.
That's so true. I'm like totally a creature of habit.
Yeah.
I love structure and routine,
Okay.
but like my best friend, she's the opposite.
Yeah,
Always up for trying new things,
wow.
gets bored super easily with like repetitive tasks.
That's interesting. So different, right?
I know. It's amazing how
So
that
different.
way it can be so different.
And that's why there's no, like, one-size-fits-all approach to building habits.
Right.
What works for one person might not work for another.
Exactly.
So it's about finding what resonates with you,
yeah.
your personality,
Yeah.
your goals.
It's like we all have our own like
Yes.
unique habit fingerprint.
Yeah, there's no, like, right or wrong way to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's about experimenting
Yeah.
and finding what works for you.
What about genetics?
Oh, yeah.
Does Clear talk about that at all?
He does. He acknowledges that our genes, they can, like, predispose us to certain behaviors.
Okay.
But he emphasizes that, like, genes aren't destiny.
Right.
We have a lot more control over our habits than we think.
So it's not nature versus nurture. It's nature any nurture.
Exactly. Our genes, they might give us the blueprint,
Yeah.
but our environment, our choices, our habits, they determine how that blueprint is expressed.
I like that.
Yeah.
So it's about like maximizing our potential,
It is.
whatever that potential might be.
Right. And sometimes, it's not even about being the best at something,
Okay.
but being different.
Oh, interesting.
Clear quotes this cartoonist Scott Adams,
Mm-hmm.
who says that his success came from combining two skills that are, like, pretty common individually,
Okay.
but rare in combination.
What were they?
Drawing and writing jokes.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's about finding your unique edge,
Right.
your blend of skills and talents that makes you stand out.
Yeah, like, finding that recipe
Yes.
where the individual ingredients might be normal, but the combination
Yeah,
makes something amazing.
it does. And once you've found your edge, it's about really honing those skills, turning them into habits that work for you.
Yeah.
Clear talks about always trying to improve, even when you're already successful.
Right. Like not getting complacent.
Exactly. He uses the example of the LA Lakers, the basketball team.
Yeah.
They had this career best effort program
Oh, wow.
to track their performance and find areas to grow.
Even when they were winning championships.
Yes, even then.
That's impressive.
It's a good reminder that growth, it's a continuous process.
It is.
There's always room for improvement,
Totally.
no matter how successful you become.
So it all comes back to, the power of those small changes.
Exactly. Clear keeps saying it. Those tiny improvements, they can lead to amazing results.
Yeah.
It's
right.
about focusing on the process, not just the outcome.
It's a message of hope.
It is.
And empowerment,
Yeah.
reminding us that we have the ability to shape our lives
Sure.
one small habit at a time.
It's true.
I think that's one of the biggest takeaways from Atomic Habits.
Yeah, it's about understanding the science behind habits
Mm-hmm.
and using that knowledge to create a life that feels good.
Well, we've covered a lot.
I know we have.
So as we're wrapping up here,
Yeah.
what's like one final thought you want to leave our listener with?
Ooh, that's a good one.
What's the one key takeaway
Mm-hmm.
you hope they remember?
I would say remember that you are the architect of your life.
Mm-hmm.
You get to choose the habits that shape who you are and what your future looks like.
Yeah,
So choose wisely.
that's good.
Choose those habits that show your values, the ones
Yeah.
that bring you joy, that get you closer to the person you want to be.
I love that. It reminds us that we're not just, creatures of habit. We're creators of habit.
We are.
We can change our destinies,
Yeah.
one small step at a time.
And it's a journey.
It is.
It never ends.
Yeah,
You can always grow, get better,
yeah.
transform yourself.
Keep building those atomic habits, right?
Absolutely.
That lead to a life of purpose,
Yes.
fulfillment.
I think that's what it's all about.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into atomic habits.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
We hope you learned something,
Yeah.
get some inspiration to create positive change
Make those small changes
in your own life.
that make a big difference.
Until next time.
Yeah.
Keep diving deep.